Summer Game Fest Playdays has come and gone, and I'm going through my wrap-up of all my videos and coverage that I've been working on, so let's get into it. I kind of want to spend this video, I guess, going over my days, and this is kind of like just an overview journaling of the vlog of what I did and over the course of what it is. So, what is Summer Game Fest Playdays? I would generally describe it, and a fellow YouTuber, Jason Schreier, you might know him. He's an up-and-comer in the YouTuber space, but well known for his journalistic and work in Bloomberg and Kotaku and so many other places. And then he writes a few novels as well that are pretty insightful in the game space. Recently in a video shared a good kind of dissection of why E3 had come apart. And I say that to say, long story short, you should go watch his video. It's very informative and insightful. But without retreading too much of it, E3 used to be kind of this hub at which a lot of publishers, devs, and everyone in between in the games industry would gather together in these convention centers in LA. And that when that stopped, this kind of came in its place in a pseudo way. So it's almost like a mini E3. I'm paraphrasing a lot of things, and there's a lot more good details in what he shared. But essentially, yeah, this is Summer Game Fest Playdays is this kind of space that Jeff Keighley and his team have been gracious enough to invite a lot of press and media and creators to, and a lot of game developers to show off and showcase their games to the press and media, and with appointments and all kinds and whatnot. So this is my second year going, and we went, I would say, pretty hard. Every day I had a packed day from the start of the day, which was like 9-10, all the way to closing of each day. And it was after the live showcase that was in the Dolby Theater in LA on Friday. Then we went into Saturday, Sunday, and Monday with appointments. And so Saturday started with a theater appointment with Capcom. They gave us a nice little preview of Resident Evil Code Veronica with a Q&A with their producer Yoshiaki, who's very gracious with his time. I think I'm used to QAs kind of being a little bit more rushed, but he spent some time with us, really fielded a lot of questions, and I thought it was pretty good dialogue. This is a remake in a lot of ways. It's taking place with Claire Wesker and her story and the fallout of RE2 with Leon, and now we're kind of with Claire. So they want to bridge a lot of the gap, I think, both in the remake side and also with the Requiem that had just come out, kind of just catch you up with these certain characters in the Resident Evil lore. The development has taken a lot of feedback from players from the prior games. The dev team is very aware volume doesn't always mean better, but they make a conscious choice with like a lot of satisfying game experiences. So they're trying to be cognizant of what they remake and what they change and what they adjust. Unlike Requiem, there is no first person, even though the trailer kind of made it seem like that. That was more for theatrical, kind of a reveal moment of what is this game. It is largely going to be in third person. And one of the questions I got a chance to ask was, what resonates with the team about Claire's story? And it seemed like the producer Yoshiaki was really drawn to her humanity and how strong-willed she has. And I think that's something important to keep in mind, of just like, as fun, like when we look at these games in the Resident Evil stuff, they're really putting an effort to build the story and world and lore beyond just like kind of the combat. So it was cool to hear just like what's the thought behind it and what's the team's thought behind it. It started shortly after development of Resident Evil 4 Remake. And then after that time with the Q&A, we went into a bit of an Onimusha demo, which I've spoken at length about my experience playing the Onimusha demo. So that was a really cool theater demo. Later in the day, I ended up having my Capcom appointment where I went hands-on with Onimusha, and that was a very fun experience. I really enjoyed that time. Shout out to Richie. He was my kind of like Capcom handler, and he made that experience one of the best like demo experiences I've had ever. Really cool guy. So after the theater demo with Capcom, I went to the main kind of play areas where a lot of the games kind of all exist. And Pop Agenda, I had an appointment through them with the Messoff team for their upcoming game. If you're familiar with their work, they've done Nidhogg and Wheel World, and I've talked at length about their game at Playdays. It's one of my favorites, and that's Blood Dungeon. Spent some time at that booth, played the game a little bit, and then went from there. Some of this is also like you really need to take in breaks when you can. They have some media lounges. They have some food and drink stations. You get some meal tickets to take care of you for the day, which is all I think is very supportive of like, hey, we want to keep you in good spirits. We want to keep you hydrated. We want to keep you just staying on campus. Like, that's the goal. And it's a nice campus. They really lay out the land. I think last year's was a bit better laid out, but you can't pick and choose. And I think overall it still kept a good kind of layout. But my next appointment was off campus. I went over to see the creators behind the game Hella of Mice and Magic at a hotel nearby, and I had a demo with them. Had some time with their lead game director and one of the team's who was he? It was Alexander, the head of the studio, and Henrik, the art director. And they really talked through a lot of what the game design and intent were, the journey they've been on, and what the game feels and looks like, which very cool. I shared some thoughts. You'll see, by the way, a lot of my coverage is across both Temple of Geeks YouTube page as well as my own. I went this year as a creator for my channel, but I do a lot of freelance work with Temple of Geek, and that's just like something I've very much enjoyed. I've been very lucky to have my games editor Miles kind of support and guide me in a lot of ways, and that's been always appreciative. But I was doing a little bit of double duty here, so going between those two. If you're wondering like where's the coverage of that game, I covered a few of these games in individual spotlights for both my channel and their channel. You'll see in my collaboration tab as well me listing that. But some of the games I didn't have a chance to do a full review, and I don't want to miss out on talking about. So that's what kind of this is an overview of everything, but also an opportunity to spend some time talking about those other games. So after that demo off campus with Hella, I took a lift back. It wasn't too far, and then I had a little bit of break time just to roam around, take a look at a few things, gather my notes, which I have a little handy-dandy notebook that I made sure to just keep my notes, because I knew weeks, it'd be a 1, 2, maybe 3 weeks out, and I'd need to get my thoughts together, and I didn't want to forget. So it's kind of important as you're doing this, and this is kind of insight for anyone in the future, that if you're able to go to Summer Game Fest Play Days or something similar, and you're like, how do you do it? How does one do it? There's so many different ways. Some people just do it in the moment right there, which I try to do a little bit of, but there's a self-conscious energy that I sometimes still have, so I don't know. And I freak out when I don't have my like equipment already tested. Anyway, Capcom did Onimusha hands-on. That was really cool. And then before the day ended, I went and played the PM Studios. They had Avatar Legends. This was a really cool demo. I spoke with the founder Victor and the marketing director Kim, and really got some good time and hands-on with that game, Avatar Legends, fighting game. It's been in development for about, I think, roughly 2 years, they said, dedicated. But that game is a lot of fun. I think they've taken an existing IP, which I thought would be a more daunting task. They said that helped them in a lot of ways, and they're both from having a bit of an esports background, and so that insight and interest to want to make fighting games more widely appealing was really at the forefront of their mind, and I believe a lot of what they're putting into the game shows that. Getting a chance to play as all the characters. They just recently showcased Avatar Kyoshi, but then playing as any of the other characters and having supports in different ways. There's an ecosystem that they're like, we have a good read of where the direction the larger IPs are going, with like Marvel Tokon and 2XKO, and these tag fighter type things. And they're like, we're not a tag fighter, we're something more like traditional, but with an assist and stuff. So I really dug it. I'm hopefully showing some gameplay footage here, which was really, again, it was a really cool experience. They're gonna have online modes and the whole kit and caboodle. So got a chance to check that out. And that was Saturday. Then we ended the day there. These days, again, they go so long, and sometimes there's evening events as well. The prior night there was like the mix. They had their showcase, but the next day I had an early morning. For Sunday I had a very packed day. I had like almost 10 appointments. We started things off with Marvel, with their Magic set overview and a bit of an interview for their Commander game design, which was really cool. So I had a few questions prepared. I kind of wanted to just see where the conversation goes. I really dug what they're doing with the set, and I'm hopeful. I'm excited to see what they do. I'm big on the Commander side, but seeing people play this in Sealed and Draft, I'm hopefully going to get a chance to play a little bit of that this weekend and with friends on other nights and stuff. When you see these Universes Beyond stuff, it's good kind of on-ramping points. Then I had my appointment with Sega. I had a chance to spend some time with Alien Isolation 2, and that was a wild experience because I'm not the best when it comes to horror games, but lately we've just been enjoying horror in very different ways, both in film, on my own, of just like this weird curiosity I've been having to explore it, and then with Alien Isolation 2, I very much enjoy the Alien franchise. It's very cool, and I've always been curious about what the game offers because I've heard it's so intelligent with like how it adapts and learns based on of what habits and things you practice. So to see it put into practice after so many years after the first one, I feel like it's a really polished project. Showed really well. It showcased really well. They put us in this dark room area. I'm still waiting for some reaction footage, which I hope to share soon. But it was like a reactions of while I was playing, it was watching me. So that was pretty cool. It was a really interesting game, and I think a lot of folks that dig that sort of game are going to really dig this experience. Then I had a chance to go to see Annapurna, and Annapurna had a slew of games that I wanted to make sure I discuss. It was kind of like a catch-all of a variety of different things. So I spent some time looking at, let me check my notes. So they did a theater hands-off demo of The Lost Wild. It's kind of a dinosaur survival game, similar in what, like, I guess, genre to the Alien Isolation 2, where it's kind of like you're kind of hiding, you're first person, you're moving around trying to avoid being seen and caught. Really cool stuff. Great Ape Games is behind this. We had our presenter Nick kind of talking through things, and then really wanted to make a distinction that they're not treating or viewing the animals or the dinosaurs as monsters, but rather as animals. And what I'm curious how that translates to what they do with the game, with what the behavior is, what the things the various dinosaurs do. We kind of went through this area where it was like kind of the introduction of the game. You're on an island, there dinosaurs exist, and it's like, why are you here? Why do they exist? What's going on? And are there other survivors? Very cool thing. The studio's very tight knit. It's a single player kind of evasion based survival horror. You play as Saskia, and right now what we saw too, I should preface, is an alpha build, and they're aiming for 2027 at some point for PC and PS5. After the theater demo, we came out, and the Annapurna had a bunch of smaller demos outside. There was 3 in particular: Demi and the Fractured Dream, which played very much like a 3D Zelda-like chill experience. It was very lighthearted, very chill, interesting dungeons, and I love the artwork and character design. That was the biggest selling point. And like one thing I loved with all these demos that they had outside here, they had these like N64-like or Super Nintendo-like box arts that were just like, they looked like they were made for that. They had a very retro aesthetic outside next to their bar, a bunch of VHSs. They had all these games in these older like game disc shells, so that was cool to see. Another one that was really fun and I really enjoyed was Forever Ago. It was a much more on the cozy kind of lo-fi kind of vibe. You're playing as this older man, road tripping in this van. And one of the things I really enjoyed, I touched a little bit on this story, but what I really enjoyed was just what it lets you do as this older man on travel. You have this like classic vintage camera, and you can snap photos of anything just to log in your journal and kind of go through the day. I feel like it's hitting on in cozy in a way that I'm so used to cozy being. I've said, I think in other videos, where cozy I typically associate to these like Stardew Valley like games. To have this kind of be like a cozy road trip kind of adventure seems very cool, and I think the story around this character looks like one that I would want to resonate with. Lastly, we have a game called Detopia. This is a very N64-like in a lot of ways. It was an N64 box art, but like the models is like a 3D anime vibe, very like future, not future, the Jetsons, kind of like that kind of aesthetic of the future paradise, but you're kind of getting this weird eerie feel to it too, of like, is everything okay? Is everyone just in there like Orwellian, like 1984? You have your role assigned to your function, do your duty. It seemed like it's hinting at something. I wasn't quite sure, but then it's really more of like, you are this boy who goes into his role, and his function is solving these puzzles for, you know, daily work and assignments. So it's like these number puzzles, these little mini games. And so that was where all the Annapurna demos. I do want to take a moment here to say, like, I saw that Control Resonant was being previewed there. I did not have an appointment for Control Resonant, but I was very adamant about trying to find one. So a lot of times everything at Playdays is appointment based, so that's why I think I went harder on securing appointments, because if you don't, you're kind of at the whim of people canceling their appointments, or if there's a window of something. And I went in the very overcautious side and just booked every appointment I could, though I didn't, you know, you don't know what you don't know, and I didn't have that one, because some folks go for different like levels of press and creators. That said, they were very kind and supportive, and they're like, hey, we sometimes do have cancellations, we'd love to if we have an opportunity, so just check back with us, we're here all the time. So more on that later. After that, I had a short break, and then I went into to gather my notes and everything, and then I went into my demo for Tomb Raider, Legacy of Atlantis. This was about an hour-ish long demo. It was a little bit of a preview, and then about like 40 minutes of gameplay, developed by Crystal Dynamic and Flying Wild Hog. This is also kind of on the cusp of their 30-year anniversary. I did have an interview later in the day, and so I was keeping that in mind as I was playing through the game, of not just experiencing the game, but then thinking of like questions that it could help me inform me on what I would want to ask. The demo is really fun, it's beautiful. You can see my coverage both on Temple Geek for the interview and my impressions here on my channel. I was able to finish the demo about 15 minutes early. The first half of the demo is kind of in this introductory puzzle, which was fun and interesting, and I thought like just a new take on the original. This is kind of like a remake of the original game, reimagining of the 1996 game. After that initial first part, you kind of get cut into a future part of the game where you're fighting raptors and dinosaurs and shooting away. And it's more combat kind of driven, and that was also really fun. I think the bullet time kind of effects worked really well with what a modern Tomb Raider would want to feel like. It felt very weighty, it felt very cinematic, it felt very like visually impressive, and also like the character work was really cool. This is currently slated for February 12th, 2027, coming out on PS5, Xbox, PC, and Switch 2. I am very curious, and this was not something I was able to talk about or ask, and they didn't have anything available to share, but I'm very curious about the Switch 2 side of things, both from a performance standpoint, but also from an input method standpoint. I think after I did a Nintendo, when they first, it was like a preview event for the Switch 2. Before the Switch 2 had even come out, I got a chance to go to that. And one of the things that was really interesting to me, and it's been on my mind ever since, was I spoke with one of the developers at CD Projekt Red about Cyberpunk coming to the Switch 2 at that time. And the biggest thing that was on their mind in terms of an interesting design challenge wasn't just like having it ported and playing at an optimized performance, but if they would be able to and willing to try to play with what the Switch 2 offers in terms of different input methods, Joy-Con, motion controls, split Joy-Cons, to get like single Joy-Cons in like the side mode. So that's always been on my mind whenever I think of a game being taken to the Switch 2, is like, ooh, what are they doing anything with the input methods? Because I'm curious how others are handling that. I digress. After Tomb Raider, I went back to the Annapurna area where they were showing a Silent Hill Townfall theater demo. It was hands off. We had the design director there sharing the game and the goals of the game. The developers were Screenburn. They're a studio based in Glasgow, Scotland, and this game is set kind of in their neck of the woods. It's first person for a Silent Hill game. I have a video sharing my thoughts on that, but I think one of the biggest things that stood out to me about this was oftentimes in games, when a character is talking to themselves, they're vocally talking to themselves, and that takes, I think they were cognizant that takes a level of the immersion out of it. If you're playing this game where you're trying to be very cautious of where you're at, what you're doing, you wouldn't talk out loud. So the character in this game, Simon, is only talking out loud when he's trying to talk to someone or say something intentionally. If he has an inner thought, it's written on the screen as on like in the bottom left corner, and that's the thought. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. I dig where they're taking some of this intent and design and doing something with it. They take a lot of their own efforts and their prior game experiences, and they're trying to inject a little bit of that as well into what is the Silent Hill franchise. I think it's a very promising direction. It's a new direction. I've never been a Silent Hill like gamer or fan. This one has definitely got an interest for me to try it and to see what it's like. And that's coming out later this year. Next up, I went back into the thick of it. I played a party game. This one was, I want to make sure I say this one fully correctly because the name is a doozy. So N plus Infinity times 2 is the name of the game. I want to make sure my computer doesn't go crazy on me, but this was developed by MetaNet Softwares, and this was a really cool thing. So N Plus as a franchise is a long-standing existing property. That's the same studio has been making these games. It was a really fresh kind of co-op friend kind of party game, a co-op, like a split screen kind of thing, local or online. What I loved about it, I'm not too familiar with the N Plus franchise, but I really dug that party aspect of it. It is these like stick figure characters that you're all playing as, and they have racing modes, they have like a tag mode, they have, you know, modes that we didn't even have a chance to really get into. But it had I could see an easy jump in, jump out kind of play effort where you're again, like you could do 2v2, you could do free for all, you could do all kinds of things. The multiplayer is very silly, it's simple, but in a good way. I mean that as a compliment. It's easy to drop in and drop out, and I think a lot of times we have games that are intending to be fun and multiplayer, but like they will burden you with like, oh my god, there's 1,000 things you got to make sure you learn, and it's not easy to sell someone to be like, hey, try to sell a friend like on that front, not sell just like as a customer, but to get a friend to be like, hey, let's play this game together. It's hard enough these days to get friends to play the same game, let alone try to get them to like learn and try a game. I think this one, making that barrier of entry so straightforward, is a huge plus. I think for me, the stick figure side of things really drew to the strengths of like what I reminisce and go to nostalgia from with like Newgrounds or like E-Bomb's World back in the day. For I'm dating myself a little bit, but like I loved watching all those stick figure animation videos. So yeah, N plus Infinity times 2, really fun little multiplayer game I played there. No announcement on release date yet, but that was one of my later demos that day. And then I went back for the Tomb Raider interview. That was a really cool one. I got to chat with the experience director, the art director, and the game director. So they're all at once. It was a really interesting conversation, and they were really gracious with their time. I really learned a lot from each of their perspectives and what they're bringing with it across Crystal Dynamic and Flying Wild Hog. So that was a really cool time to have that interview, and they were very kind in that time. Lastly, for that day, I had my last demo was a double feature. It was Crimson Moon and Nakomi Nazi Hunter. Crimson Moon is coming out later this year. Nakomi Nazi Hunters, it was an early alpha that they showed, and both were they're both developed by different studios. PM Studios, I think, was the publishing branch. Don't quote me on that, but both were very violent. That was like the running theme. It felt like a Grindhouse double feature with those two, which was very cool. I think that's a very optimal way to, like, not optimal, but a very on-brand way of going about it. It's like, hey, we know our two games are going to be like this. They're going to pair really well together. We first spent some time with Nakomi Nazi Hunter. I shared some of my thoughts on that recently on, I believe, Temple of Geek. With both of these, honestly, yeah. That game is all about just like the Nazi hunting fantasy. I think it offered something a little different from Wolfenstein that we know is tried and true in that vein, in that genre. This is kind of doing its own thing. I thought was very interesting. My main thing is I wanted to lean harder into what it's doing. That's it. Crimson Moon, I liked some of the things it's doing. I think it shows potential and promise. I think for me, this is a game that would do better with a little bit of early access to help optimize it. So maybe after some patches and feedback, it could get to a spot that it's good. Not that it doesn't have the right pieces, it's just it doesn't feel like it's packaged to its best state. And yeah, it just, the combat feels good. I just feel like it's doing, it's aesthetic and what it's doing, it's in a lot of different directions. And for me, it didn't quite hit 100%, but maybe there's more to it that I didn't see in the demo. And so that ends Sunday. And at this point, I was pretty winded. I was hoping, so I stayed, last year I drove back home every day, and that was quite a long drive. And I would just knock out and then get ready for the next day. With this year, I tried to get a hotel nearby to keep that travel minimal and be local, and then hopefully also try to record and edit my videos the same day. And boy, did that not happen. Not only did I not have time during the day to record, but afterwards I was just too exhausted. I grabbed a bite to eat, I had a drink or two, and then I was like, I'm calling it. Which is okay. These are learning opportunities. And so we get to the last day. The last day, I started the day with, want to make sure I get this one right. So this was Hot Wheels Infinite Rush by Milestone SRL. Just Milestone, I think, is the main studio. This game, I initially was being called Unannounced Racing Game, but I learned as we got close to it what it was. And yeah, it was Hot Wheels Infinite Rush. There's over 150 vehicles to collect, and the main thing is to collect them all to try to get them. The prior Hot Wheels games were much more like, hey, this is it's like miniaturized in a bedroom or and stuff. This one was shifted things a little bit more to be like dioramas. There's a really cool wheel editor and kart editor and a track builder. It's fully featured. It ran smooth as hell. It was super sharp. I think my biggest challenge, and this is a me problem, not a games problem, so I want to be clear about that. I think I'm not the best at racing games. I'll just say that. Like, when a game is doing like really impressive stuff, I'm so used to something like a Mario Kart that if it's not something like that, I struggle. So I say that to say this game is doing things really well with what it had. It offered 4 different types of vehicles that you could then see different styles of cars. And I would be flying, zooming through the whole thing, felt like a kid's version of a Forza Horizon game. And then I just clip an edge of a wall or something and it just ruined my run, and I just stumble and I kind of crumbled and fell apart. So that was a fault on me, but I think the game is cool. They were doing this thing. They're also doing a kind of an open world, so you could like be roaming around, picking up quests or races to do, and then all of a sudden you'd see a cart and be like, "Ooh, I want that cart." In order to get the car, you have to beat the car in a race. So again, really cool game, Hot Wheels Infinite Rush. Shortly after that, I got a chance to play Aliens Fireteam Elite 2. There's no friendly fire. I haven't played the first one, but it was very Helldivers adjacent for me. And they were like, oh, if you want the harder difficulties, that's when we turn on friendly fire. And I'm like, man, that's gotta be nuts. But it's a squad-based kind of game. Really fun in the Alien universe, 20-30 minutes per match. I picked the Machinist class. That was really fun. I got a bunch of like engineering turrets that like were support for me. I worked with Nick, the art director. Shout out to Nick. He was the GOAT. He was super cool, answered all my questions. And they're pulling from like, this is a canon game, so they're like in the Aliens universe, and I believe it's 28 years after Aliens. But yeah, I love that game. That was one of my favorites of the show, so I really dug that. Then I had an appointment for Star Wars Galactic Racer. I can't speak too much about this. I just can say that I've experienced a little bit of it, and you'll see a video later in June, potentially, or later, about this game. But yeah, I will have thoughts to share. I will share them later. I will say I did get finally back about the Control Resonant demo. I got a chance to make a friend, and then both of us were trying to get a demo, and then they got the demo, and then I went in after, and they're like, hey, if you guys are buddies, if you don't mind, you can just like sit over her shoulder and watch. And I was like, yeah, I'm happy to do that as long as she is. And she was like, yeah, cool, let's do it. So I got to watch someone else play Control Resonant, and that shit was so cool. I cannot wait. I really dug it. I can't speak too much to it because I didn't get a chance to actually play it, but very cool game. Very melee focused as opposed to the first one being more on like the like gunfire kind of focused. We saw the very beginnings of the game, so it was kind of like go through the tutorials, do all these builds. There's a boss fight, visual. The atmosphere and the visuals were just so cool. Yeah, I can't wait. Then I had this like big barrage of games. So Day of the Devs was shortly after the Jeff Keighley like live Summer Games Showcase, and so I had 6 games available to me in this short like round based like go speed dating almost style. I started with Lazy River, and I talked about this. I talked about all these games specifically on Temple of Geeks channel, so be sure to check that out. So I tried Lazy River, really fun game, very similar to like Peak, if you're familiar with that. Very much like a friend game. You're on this like space lazy river amusement park, and the water infects you because people peed in it, and that turns you into a zombie. And you're just trying not to turn into a zombie or not get killed by zombies. Then I played Shot One Fighters. It's also another take, like Avatar Legends, on trying to make fighting games more accessible. This one was really cool. It's doing it from a purely single-player standpoint. It plays it like a Slay the Spire roguelike. Then I played Screenbound, which was very cool. It's almost like you're doing like 2 levels of retro. You're doing the 3D platforming with 2D platforming at the same time. When you see it, it makes sense. It's hard to describe, but it was really cool. They nailed the aesthetic. They nailed the vibe. Then I tried Ukulele Kart. That was really interesting. It's a take on kart racing. I don't think I was the target audience, but I think they're doing a lot of ambitious ideas that I'm wondering how that resonates with other players. So I'm curious. I hope they get to where they need to be. And they definitely are involving their community and fan base. So I think that's a good sign of how they fine tune and tweak stuff. Then I played an indie game called Bub. This is a very artful, kind of like autobiographical story game. I think this is going to hit me in the gut. Really liked the direction. Felt like every motion was a living painting. I didn't have a lot of time to play the last one, Ithaca. I just kind of jumped in, felt it, and then I had to bounce before they rotated us again. But so I can't speak to that one too much. We're on the home stretch. Those were like my main ones. I had 2 interviews back to back with the Bethesda team. I first spoke with 2 of the individuals supporting at Playdays for Elder Scrolls Online, and that was really cool. I'm not too familiar with Elder Scrolls Online, but I was talking to them from the perspective of live service games. They're hard. I mean, for me, one of my close ones that I really dug was Destiny, and it's going down by the wayside. And I thought that was one of the best of them. And so to go as long as they have for ESO is really impressive. And so I came from that perspective of like my interview with them. They were really insightful. I thought I had a lot of good thoughts. After that, I talked to Fallout 76 team. I talked to their creative director and I believe one of their producers. I may be wrong on that, but those interviews are out for Temple of Geek. Check those out. And that was also really kind of similar tone of like, how are you paying attention to your audience? How are you changing a game where this started as a player involved game, and whereas the other Fallout games are much more like you and NPCs. So how do you play to that, and how do you adjust as you need? Both really cool interviews. And then I ended with a big grand finale. I was really excited about this game from the get-go, and it was the last appointment I had booked to cap off the weekend, and that was Mr. Records. I really dug this game. It's a rhythm game. You play this old man. By day, you're selling records in a shop, and in order to get more records, by night, you listen to them, and once you've successfully danced and go through this psychedelic little rhythm game, as you listen to them, then if you successfully do that, then you get to sell that record, and characters will come in and out of your shop that have continuing stories. So you're trying to buy more or sell more records so that you can buy more songs, so that you can offer them more records to recommend. The aesthetic is so amazing. I love it. Very cool thing. And that was where we ended our weekend. We had so many games to go over. I am so hooped. Been trying to work on coverage, but it was a really cool experience. Again, I think I just needed to pace myself a little bit better. But all in all, like, that experience was some of my favorite stuff. There's a lot of peers that were there, friends that I knew, friends that I made. And I think there's some camaraderie that comes with that, of like, oh, how are you approaching your work, and what are you doing with your creative efforts, and how are you involving covering of games. I mentioned Jason Schreier earlier. He's just walking by me doing his thing. Mark Cerny's there doing his thing. Jeff Keighley's there doing his thing, overseeing it. A lot of the PR folks are there doing their thing. The different individuals that are supporting the devs themselves are there, making sure the demos are doing well. This isn't an easy thing to do at any level of this. I think everyone involved with Summer Game Fest Playdays, supporting it, staffing it, security, everyone does such an amazing job. I just want to take a sec to really applaud them for that. And I think it goes a long ways for making the experience as seamless and as pleasant as it is. I think that's it. You will hear more from, I think, one more video of mine regarding Galactic Racer. But other than that, this kind of is my capstone to everything. So I plan to do something similar, probably at a better tempo this with PAX West. So I will see how that coverage goes. And then we hope to be back at Playdays next year. I think it's something I enjoy and look forward to. So we'll see how that goes next year. But again, thank you all for the support and for the kind words and for the feedback. I always appreciate any of the above. It always goes a long way. Until next time, we'll catch you next video.